What happens now if you put on the cross a body that is believed to be the body of God, the sacred humanity of Jesus? What does that say? Well, there's a couple of parables in the Gospels that try to explain this to it, but since we're dealing with mystery, what it obviously is trying to say is that God didn't consider, as Paul puts it, being equal to God something to cling to, but emptied himself, that is, of all of the dignity and most of the powers of the divinity, and certainly the respect deserving of it, to identify with this hopeless situation in which this human species is formed, even to the point of becoming one with it and becoming the progenitor of it from a spiritual perspective. So from the divine perspective, God couldn't have done worse than to make himself a human being, the least intelligence of any species of intelligence that we know of on Earth, and in desperate shape, and beating each other's up when the pain, interior pain, is so great we have to project it on somebody else to survive. So the first thing then that is comes across, and you look at the cross, is that God has taken us and our particular sufferings and that of the whole race completely into himself and shares them and identifies with our plight as well as with the possibilities for further evolution that are inherently present in the whole process. So the symbol then of the cross with a body on it is the ultimate expression, you might say, of a love that we can't understand. In other words, we think of love as involving some kind of reward, at least in the erotic sense of the term love, some return from others. But this is an expression of God's absolutely gratuitous love that is involved in our creation, but also in furthering our evolution into a greater share or a complete sharing in the divine life. So you might say what the cross is revealing is the incredible love of the Father for this intelligent but fragile and more or less powerless and long-suffering species. At the same time, the Christ on the cross means that God intends to do something about this, and his suffering is, while it primarily expressing the intensity of divine love, is also expressing his this healing, or his redemptive, which is the real meaning of healing, love that takes away the guilt or whatever fault there was in our condition. Is just how much fault there might be in our condition is one of the questions that higher states of consciousness will have to address. So the first cross that is bare is the human condition. The second cross with the body of God on it is the introduction into the human species of the divine life itself, that is so powerful that it affects everything in the species backwards and forwards in time. Since God is not in time, what he does is forever, is eternal. So as we contemplate the cross with its identification with the human condition, we understand why Christ feels abandoned by the Father, begins to speak of him in a more abstract form rather than the term Abba that he seems to have used during his lifetime. And his visible physical sufferings are the sign of the divine suffering or pain that God experiences in identifying with our condition. And it raises the question, is it a greater love to take away our sins? Or is it a greater love to allow the consequences of our sin, taking away the guilt is already been done, that enables God to be God in us, so to speak?